for me, there was this sense that I wasn't good enough to be a 3 or like a 3 enough 3.
Which is very 3.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
3. Like, I feel like there's an end goal. Like, there is a greater me that needs to be born.
Yes.
It's like this weird thing with 3s where like you believe that you could be anything that you want to be, and like it's like in your soul you believe it. You can give power to things. You know, all you have to do is just like believe it. That sounds so lame.
No, but I so get it. I'm so with you on that. All you have to do is believe.
The big hormone enneagram.
Hi, it's John here. I'm a sexual self-pres for the 4-5-8 tri-type.
Hi, David here. I'm a self-pres sexual 9 with a 1, 9-7-4 tri-type.
Hey, it's Emeka. I'm an 8 wing 7 sexual type with the 8-5-4 tri-type.
Hey, it's Nancy. I'm a self-pres social 3, wing 4, and 3-6-9 tri-type.
I was on Twitter and I was seeing some people's horny tweets, and some girl was like, you know, I need a man to send me a nut video with the sound on.
Oh.
And then all these girls were commenting like, yeah, with the sound on. Oh my God. I want to hear you moan. I was like, this is where we're at.
Yeah.
Can I confirm that a nut video is just like jerking off to completion? Is that like what a nut video is?
Yes, that's what a nut video is.
Okay.
With the sound on.
With the sound on.
Are they usually muted? Like, why would you mute it?
I don't know if any dudes are trying to like, oh baby, let me.
Yeah, a lot of guys get real weird about hearing them moan. I don't get that. I love hearing guys moan.
Yeah, that's what all the women were saying. Like,
yeah, like every guy's like, oh, I can't make a noise. Well, that's even fucking weirder.
Yeah,
you're just like stone faced, like, oh yes.
No, you got to go all the way. Like, ah!
Okay, I got it. Hi guys.
Hey, Joseph.
It's a perfect time to come on.
Yeah, you gotta make some primal yells at the point of completion.
Welcome to Big Hormone Enneagram. We're talking today with 2 very special 3s and a half 3, Joseph. And so before we intro you all, I just want to say a few things about what type 3 is. Generally speaking, 3s are a highly motivated, goal-oriented type. There's a way that they have an intuitive sense of value and what is valuable and how to see potential in themselves and others and how to actualize it. But what can end up happening in 3s is that they become identified with the persona or image that helps, gain the sense of value and, that gains the positive feedback or the esteem or helps realize the goal. And so there can be kind of an inner split between the 3 persona or image and then how the 3 is on the inside. And when 3s are healthier, they're able to kind of create a relationship between these 2 sides of themselves. And when they're less healthy, it splits apart. And so actually we have 3 3s. So whoever wants to jump in of our 3s here to introduce themselves, please do.
Okay, my name's Elisa, and I'm a 3. I feel like I'm like at an AA meeting.
Hi, Elisa.
Okay, so my name's Elisa. I'm a 3 wing 2 self-pres sexual 3-7-8. What do? I'm millennial. I run a business or 2. I work a lot. I'm pretty much your typical 3. Goal-oriented. I work. I find value in my work. It's like really important to me.
And where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram, ariel.lelle.uv, because I'm an aerialist, and UV is my pole dancing studio business.
So I'm Katie. I'm a social sexual 3 wing 4, 3-6-9 tri-type. And I'm in school right now, such a 3. I'm a doctoral student to be a psychologist. So I'm currently doing my residency. So it's like my 5th year residency to be a psychologist. And I want to work with eating disorders. So that's my and a long-term plan.
Well, welcome y'all. What we've been looking at in this series we didn't really architect the series of interviewing people, but it just sort of happened that way. But we've been really getting at the heart of each type, like what it's like to not just be them, but getting a sense of how the inner dynamics and psychological structures and difficulties and struggles and gifts really emerge in each type. And we've been drawing on a lot of the object relational structures, attachment, frustration, and rejection. Looking at where each type sort of finds themselves in their type and gets lost. And what I mean is, like, what helps them to actually recognize themselves, and how we all kind of get identified and stuck in our patterns and what those are. So I was wondering, as threes, whoever wants to jump in, but as threes, how have you all been dealing with quarantine?
Quarantine has been sucking and kicking my ass. I just recently, like the past 2 days, realized that I miss my friends. Like, up until this point, I was introverting pretty well. I was like, no, this is fine. And then like 2 days ago, I was like, oh my God, I miss my friends. But I think the main thing that I've been doing that I didn't realize was part of my type until I talked to my therapist, who does Enneagram stuff too, is I've been stuffing my emotions really well. I've been like, nope, useless emotion, put it away. Nope, we don't feel that. And so I've been like feeling zero emotions. So I'm just like this emotionless meat puppet.
What does that mean to like stuff them away?
So an analogy me and my boyfriend use, because he's a 9, I'm a 3, so we stuff our emotions together. It's great. Is we have a jar and we put our emotions in it and we bury it deep, deep down. And if we're lucky, one day we'll die.
So you're like not aware of what you're actually feeling?
Yeah. So it's not a cognitive, like, I'm going to stuff my emotions now. It's like I don't have a choice in the matter. These are not even happening until they happen all at once.
What triggers them?
It's usually like I not much. It'll be like brought on usually because I'm having like physical anxiety. So it's not even so much my mental anxiety that kicks in, it's my body that's like, hey, like, this is all here and you need to deal with it. So I start getting like really shaky. It usually happens at night, is the only time this kind of stuff usually happens, but it just sort of comes out in physical anxiety, and then it just sort of overtakes me with like all the emotions at once.
So, heart threes being part of the heart center, heart triad 2, 3, and 4, they are emotional types, but they have this capacity to, as you're saying, stuff their feelings away or somehow not deal with them. How do you reconcile that reality of being a 3, but also heart type that has that dynamic with their emotion?
It's kind of hard to put into words, because it's sort of like this, not a state of denial. Like, I accept that they're there, but it's almost like a very, very specific focus. Like, I have the ability to take my brain and put it on something that is not that. So much so to the point that can like almost disappear. And it doesn't always disappear. Like, that's not how you would deal with trauma, and that's not how I would recommend everyone deal with their emotions, or emotions that they don't want to deal with. But it's like, the way that I see it is, it's sort of like this razor sharp focus. And especially, like, I feel like my verb is, I think everyone has a verb, I think my verb is do. And when you're constantly just doing things, you don't always have to deal with the things that you don't want to deal with, that aren't right in front of your face, that you're not doing with your hands right now. So it's like, it's not always healthy, but it can be a really great way to deal with traumatic experiences or with emotions that can be clouding your judgment.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that. You have to be careful as a 3 to make sure that you're doing things because you want to do them, not because you're trying to escape. So I often find myself being like, especially in quarantine, I'll be like, oh, I'll paint, or I'll go for a walk, or I'll go for a run, which are all really healthy things. But why am I doing them? Am I doing them because I'm escaping what's coming up in my body right now? Or am I doing them because I really want to be doing something beautiful and creating? And like, if creativity brought out my emotions, that would be fine. But I kind of use it to stuff my emotions sometimes. So
what's the threat that feeling poses? Or I'm assuming it sounds like it's a threat, or it's like unmanageable or difficult. Like, why would you need to put feelings aside?
I think it depends on the feeling. Like specifically for me, I think anxiety is one thing that I'm constantly trying to decide. And to me, anxiety is, I mean, in a word, useless. That's like my personal opinion. I wouldn't say that that's the case for everyone, but for the most part, I know when I get like anxious thoughts or feelings, like this isn't gonna help my current situation. Like for example, with quarantine. Quarantine has been a tough time to hide from the anxiety, I think, because there's less to do, I guess, or because there's so much more time for introspection that maybe we didn't have before. For me, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like I'm always introspective, but quarantine's definitely brought up a lot, regurgitated a lot of things that maybe I wasn't focusing on before, but were always sort of looming.
Like, can you give me an example?
Like my career, for example, like the word professional, something I've actually been really tugging with lately is like, what does that mean? Who am I? I feel like as a 3, I do so many things and I'm doing so many things with my career that I'm stretched thin between them and I can't give 100% to like all of the things that I do. So am I really even that good at them? You know what I mean? Like that's sort of been something that's been on my mind that I think is a very 3 concept where, you know, if I were to do like 3 things instead of 5, just throwing numbers out there, like I would be better at those 3 things than I would the 5 things, wouldn't I? Because I would be able to give more to the 3 things. So
well, what you're speaking to that's interesting is, you know, as an image type or identity type, whatever you want to call it, there's this. It seems that there's always this sort of moving target of what it means to be somebody or something. You know, like what it means. Like, am I really that? Because am I good enough to be that? And that as an image type, there's this moving goalpost in terms of my capacity to live up to an ideal that is me. And it sounds like what you're speaking to is a struggle with feeling like maybe not the right term, but unworthy or unable to live into that fully. Is that accurate?
yeah, I think that is accurate.
And so is the struggle then like that you put more effort into working to sort of bridge that difference?
I think the struggle is I want so much to do everything and be everything that I can't do that. Right? Like it's just it's impossible. Like I even within my dance career, like I do so many, I work on so many different apparatuses, so many different like aspects of training that it's like I can't, like, you know, at some point you kind of just have to be like, okay, you can't do 5 different apparatuses, like you can't master five of them with like all the other shit you have going on, so you have to narrow it down. And now I've picked like 2 during quarantine that I'm working on, right, just so that I could like shift my focus. I'm not sure if that's answering the question.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I think it's more like, you know, and then as a 3, I always think the answer to my problems is to like have a better plan, or to like plan better. Like no matter what, whenever something goes wrong, that's always what I think of is like, wait, but was I prepared? Did I prepare for this? No. Do I have a plan to get out of this? I think that's like always my problem. Even with anxiety, it's sort of like, how am I going to get over this anxiety or get over this like emotional hump?
When I teach the Enneagram, and one of the ways I describe the heart center, well, one of the things I say in general is that learning the Enneagram, it changes your view of what the body, heart, and mind actually are. You know, that we have our kind of default ways we engage with or think about what body, heart, and mind are, but the experience is very different. And then there's the ego's experience of those things, and then there's the real experience, so to speak. And it's kind of dumb, but I think it's a good illustration. Is that I always describe the heart like a cat, like the animal. Like when you walk into a room and you see a cat, if you give it too much attention, then it runs away. And if you kind of indirectly approach it and kind of like leave room for it, then it eventually shows up and sits in your lap. You kind of give it space. And for the 3, I feel like one of the things that happens is that there's all this activity about, as you say, making a plan or getting things done. And then there's sort of this way to be like, I need to also leave room for like to feel what I feel and leave room for my heart or whatever. And it's kind of like planning to have a cat show up at the right time, you know, like all right, between 4 and 5, I've got enough time to just feel my feelings and do what I want to do. And then maybe the heart shows up or it doesn't. And so, then it's like 10 minutes into the heart meeting and the 3 is like, all right, well, I could be doing something better. And they start doing the next thing. And over time, it can lead to a real discrepancy between like what's really going on inside me versus how I'm doing. Does that seem accurate? And how do you feel? Like, can you describe if that's a valid struggle, like how that shows up in you in terms of feeling in or out of touch with heart and feeling?
Yeah, I think that that's really true to my experience. And what's really kind of funny about it in my experience is that it's not something that I'm aware of. I'm not usually aware that I'm running away from feelings. For me, it also tends to be anxiety. It's kind of this sense of, well, there's nothing I can really do about the anxiety, so I'm just going to kind of let it be there, and then I'm going to go do what I need to do anyway. And so that can kind of become a pattern or just kind of a rhythm of life. And even when I do kind of try to check in with myself, the cat won't always be there. It won't always crawl over into the lap. And then, it can be months later or years later where I have had this happen, where I've stopped and realized so much of what I am doing isn't actually resonant with who I am or who I want to be. And it's kind of this because of that, like being out of touch with my own feelings and what I really feel or what I really want. And it's not what's really frustrating about it is that it's not because I haven't tried. It's not because I haven't taken the time to sit and try to connect with what's going on for me or my feelings or what I want. I've tried that along the way. But I think part of being a 3 is I kind of reflexively adapt what I want or how I feel to my surroundings. So it can be really easy to kind of get off track in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was wondering, as a social 3, because any Enneagram, there's a lot of projection on 3s, and especially I think social 3s are, oh, this is the fakest version of the 3. This is the 3 that wants to be impressive and all this other stuff. So I was wondering, can you say something about your experience of being a social type and a 3, and how you're looking for value out there, how you're doing that in the social instinct?
Part of, I think, being a social 3 is one thing I don't necessarily identify with that I think can be kind of stereotypical 3 is this need to be really constantly productive and constantly doing. I have a friend who I think is a self-pres 3, and that's what she looks like, which is why I actually didn't identify as a 3 for a really long time. Is that's not my way of doing 3. Isn't just doing all of these outside achievements and being constantly busy and kind of, stacking up awards or whatever it might be in a stereotypical sense. I think that for me, it's much more a sense of, am I showing up with people or in relationships as the best form of me that I can? So the achievement isn't so much of doing things as it is, maybe being the most likable person in the room or being the person who gets the job, but not to put it on their resume, but to have those relationships and connections, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just trying to connect those dots between what you were saying about, being able to go a really long time and be doing things because you're over adapting externally, and what that looks like for a social 3. And I also kind of want to get all the other 3, the other 3s' take on what you said about the emotional piece, not like over adapting to outside ideals.
Yeah. Well, I guess how I see it kind of relating to over adapting is, I guess it's just like I can see myself almost reflectively through the eyes of other people.
Wow.
So
that's pretty good.
I can kind of do in relationships and then, wake up later and be like, this isn't actually, and I'm kind of saying in a dramatic way, but there can kind of be this kind of the sense of, this isn't actually who I want to be or who I am.
How are you able to see yourself through the eyes of other people? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, what does that mean?
They're so confused. I'm over here like, yeah, this makes total sense. And they're just like, what?
Even I relate to that. Maybe it's social as well. Like I constantly, that statement works for me as well, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge, by the way, Joseph, we didn't kind of introduce him. You want to
my bad.
Yeah. John, social
it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm a 4. I'm here because I've been friends with Elisa for a long time and I just felt like hanging out. That's
and we like Joseph, so
we like Joseph, yeah.
And social first, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say just a really quick thing that sorry, I don't want to get us off track, but I echo what you said about the strategy of assertiveness and what Katie said about like work not being the main thing for 3. It's important to note that, and also to note that like in Elisa's case, she's self-pres dominant and also triple assertive. So I've seen her use like doing, as she said, as the primary way to do 3, whereas I don't think for somebody like Katie who is say social blind and triple attachment that would necessarily be the case.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Important.
Well, I mean, so can the 3s clarify that? Because a lot of times the stereotype is that 3s are just doing. What are other ways to do 3 that isn't just about achievement and getting to the next goal?
And also clarify how do you see yourself through the eyes of other people? Yeah. I need that.
If I was like, please.
I think it's you know what? It's almost like astral projection. That didn't really
that clarifies nothing.
Okay, that confused me actually. So please explain.
Please explain.
As an astral projector, I'm confused.
Imagining into somebody else's eyes and their experience of looking at you.
Yeah. It's like like I'm social blind and I do that. I try and think of like, oh fuck, how do I look to this person? And a lot of the times for me as a social blind, I'm like I do that, but I like Katie might be able to clarify, but like she might do it faster than I would. Like I feel like I do that, but it's late. Like I'll like do something really social blind, and then later I'll be like, oh, okay. Like I'll do that, and I'll kind of be like try to think like them, and especially now that I know the Enneagram, and I'll be like, oh my god, that person 6. They're looking at me. They probably think I'm insane because of like, you know, just the crazy shit I say, or the fact that like a 6 will sit there, no offense to any 6s on this call, but a 6 will sit there and be like, shouldn't we? And I'll be like, okay, we're like, I'm already like doing it. And like, I think sometimes to them, it's kind of like, whoa, you know? So, I mean, not all 6s, but just as an example. But I think we all do that where we sort of like later after a situation, we sort of sit down and we're like, wait, I don't know how I actually looks to those people. But yeah, I think it's like it's almost like trying to get into like, as I don't know if this is true, but I really love getting into people's minds, and I think that's something I love doing is like like how do they see me, and then that's sort of how, you know, because 3s, not only do we want to do everything, but we kind of want to like be everything. Like we're like, I feel like we're this chameleon, and that can be like really detrimental to a 3. Because I feel like 3s can be easy to manipulate sometimes, and you have head types which I find can be somewhat manipulative, like not trying to be discriminatory, but I think as a 3 sometimes, like I've noticed situations where in the past, not so much anymore, but when I was younger, where I would get manipulated, and it would be like, oh my god, because you sort of slide into any situation and just become what you think, you know, what other people are doing or what they expect of you sometimes.
Yeah.
This podcast is definitely for shitting on head types. So just to clarify.
Oh, good.
Okay, got head types.
Right. So, but in terms of that mechanism that anticipates or tries to see through other people's eyes, like how accurate is that mechanism in you, do you feel like?
Oh, well, I mean, me, Elisa, like I personally want to say that it is very accurate, because it's like, it's a mixture of intuition, instinct, and also I usually only do it with people that I care about, especially as a social blind. Like if I don't really know you very well, I'm not even going to try. Like I'm going to try, but I'm going to try to like get to know you and be social, but I'm not going to try to look at things from your perspective. Maybe not yet.
Oh no, I do that.
Right.
Hey, can we hold on? Can we pause for a second? Someone's
there's
phone.
Some echoing.
Yeah, there's.
I heard the echo.
And that's usually
God damn it, Katie.
It's a metaphor. Social 3 is an echo chamber.
Everything is a metaphor.
Thank you,
Oh,
David.
yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you. That's my contribution.
David smoked some weed before this. And
Nice.
You know, I was
Nice.
remembering that because we did a couple calls with where we talked about threeness with Nancy, and we got into it once, and it was really interesting what she was saying about like threes having sort of a direct sense of someone else's value, and I guess at the same time a direct sense of what that other person, how that other person is valuing them.
Yep.
And just like that intuition that you can just sense that, and I like sort of how as an image type that's their talent. And I feel like maybe like we had a call with twos, and it feels like twos kind of have a direct sense for what anyone needs at any given point in time. Like they just know.
Yeah.
And so it feels like threes have this talent for just like what this person values, no matter what. Like they can you just know it somehow.
I'm also getting an interesting hit off of the connection to 9, right?
Yeah.
Because there's this sort of able to absorb something from other people, and and then I don't remember who said it, but wanting to be everything in a certain way. It's like more specific everything than the philosopher of the universe 9 stuff, but there's still this universality in some sense, it sounds like, that is very fascinating to me. And like part of what's interesting to me about 3 is like I have a sister who's a social self-pres 3 with a 2 wing, and we're just so radically different. And like 3s confuse the fuck out of me, because it's like there's the whole thing that we're talking about of like, how do you even know what other people think or want, or even why do you care, is so foreign. And so I don't know, there's a bunch of different questions in that for me, but I guess it's like let's say you can pick up what other people want. Like a 9 can absorb a lot from other person, but they don't usually mold themselves quite the same way that a 3 does. So what's the hook or appeal or need that comes that's served by being able to do that as a 3?
Are you asking like what do we get from knowing? Okay.
Yeah, like why?
Because then we can become it.
But why?
So they can get love.
So so for me, so we can get value. So for me, it's more of like I can keep you around for whenever I need you. So there are like not so much like my friends or anything like that, but there are a lot of people who like I purposefully become someone that they enjoy so that I can get what I want from them, whether it's a connection or a job opportunity or money or whatever. It's a little manipulative. Super manipulative.
My narcissism as a 4 is like, your gift is me.
No.
Me and all my idiosyncrasies.
No.
It's a little eye-opening as you're talking, because it's almost like I never even thought about the fact that other people don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't feed your sense of worth based on whether or not people like you. Like,
must be nice, right?
Like it's not always necessary. I know it's not always necessarily even that for me that I'm necessarily trying to get something from them. It's just like an automatic reflexive thing.
I mean, 4 of the 5 is like the most useless type there is, and so I couldn't even do it if I wanted to, and it could intuit what everybody wanted. I'd still be like, yeah, fuck you guys, I can't do it.
Can't give you shit anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, to what Katie says, it's not always a choice. Like I'll be in a group of people and I will turn into something completely different, and I won't even realize I'm doing it. And then people enter that group that are in another group, and it's like, oh my God, now 2 groups are colliding, and then I just become this weird, like, unable to communicate human because I can't be 2 different people. I don't know.
That's incredible.
I'm not that good at that.
But it's not even a choice. I just feel it in the energy shift. Like all of a sudden, I'm like, I can't talk.
So is it a struggle then of having to catch yourself when you're like playing a kind of role, and then if you catch yourself, what then?
I mean, hopefully you're not too deep into it. You can back out. but yeah, usually I don't mix groups. Yeah, as I've aged, I've gotten better.
Aged.
Aged
24.
like a fine
what are you,
wine.
25?
24. I actually forgot what age I was this year. But anyway, yeah, no, as I've gotten older, grown out of my teen years, I've learned how to like not so much be fake. Like I've learned how to be realer. So it's not so much an issue at this point, but it used to be a big issue.
So do you experience yourself that when you're doing that, does that feel fake to you?
No. Nope.
Yeah, I'd like all of y'all to talk a little bit more about like that process and your own sense of what authenticity is. Like, how do you feel about that?
So I'm listening to both of you guys talk about worth, and I don't relate the same way. And I think it's because I'm social blind. I don't actually know if I think about it the same way. Like I don't like like if you.
It's also the tri-type.
Yeah. Like if you ask me like what is my worth? Like what do I bring to the table? Like I don't even know what I would say. But I don't think I think about it in the same way of like as it's like my worth is based on what other people think. Like I would say that it's not. I don't know what my worth is based on. Probably what I can do and what I'm able to do in my and like on things like problem solving. But I don't know necessarily that I would base worth on the same thing. But I think with the authenticity thing, I think that I see in some other threes that it's almost like they believe that whatever they are in that moment is exactly who they are. And I see it with myself too. Like it'll be something weird where you're like, to give like a really grand example, like I'll be watching like a superhero movie where someone does like a crazy, ridiculous, amazing thing that you can only do with like special effects and like a movie team. And as a three, I'll sit there and think like, oh, I can do that. And in that moment, like I actually believe that I can do that. And then I have to like sit there and shake my head and be like, what do you like you kind of shake yourself out of it. But like it's like this weird thing with threes where like you believe that you could be anything that you want to be, and like it's like in your soul you believe it. So I think that to a three it is very authentic, like when you're trying to integrate into a group or when you're trying to act or do or be something. Like I think like that's the thing that is the three, like our heart believes that we can do that thing and I've seen it with myself and with other threes where like sometimes it's like, oh honey, like you cannot do that thing.
It's interesting that that when you speak of this that there's a distinction with you being social last, because it can help us kind of isolate what is really three, because I feel like a lot of what we consider as three-ish overlaps with social, which involves like kind of watching other people and trying to see yourself through their eyes. But you're speaking to something of like a soul belief that I can do whatever it is that is in front of me, and that you just believe it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love hearing it, like the social threes, like it. And when I hear a lot of other people describe three, not so much this group of Enneagram, but if I've ever read anything else about threes from other groups, I feel like they are only describing social threes or a self-pres social three. It's like they don't even think about as social blind three.
Mm-hmm. It's a 6 and 9 as well. I think that most threes are going to have 6 and 9, and there's an extra dose of that in there. Whereas you with 7, 8, there's a sort of bratty kind of like, I'm just going to do whatever I want and say whatever I want. That's naturally just there.
Yeah.
As well. So yeah, it is a good way to isolate like what just three itself is. I see with like my students, for example, that they're like, if I'm like, I need a volunteer, and like every three's hand just goes up, and I'm like, to kill themselves. Like you don't even know. Like it's that kind of thing. Is that it just takes a split second for them to just be like, I can do it. I can. And I'm talking. They're even 3, 6, 9. Most of them right too. So it's not even. But it's just that even as like kids or teens or whatever, it's like whatever it is, like they're looking at me and they're like, he needs something, he wants somebody to do something, to be something, I'll do it, I'll be it. And it's not, there's no questioning, it's just an instantaneous like hand up, I'll do it. And yeah, it's the same thing. You have to look at them sometimes and be like, I don't think you can actually, like, why don't you think for a second if this is the right thing for you to do? Can you do this? But that's not something that they really want to hear.
What's that process like of coming to terms with I can't do or I can't be?
It's
there it is.
Gross. My face, I wish you could have seen my face. It was like I ate something bitter. It was like, oh.
They reject that completely.
Yeah. Well, we talked. I think it was the last podcast. Like, this superpower of threes is we always land on our feet, and I think it's because we just think we can do anything.
Yeah, but what happens when you can't?
Don't start doing and avoiding the question.
I think for me, what I've like, there was a time in my life where I did think like, don't even try. Whatever you think that I can't do, I'll prove you wrong. I can do it. I had those moments in my life where that was just who I was. But now I think I sort of relate it to like whenever I get those thoughts, either it's like something ridiculous, like I don't know, I'll see someone like I don't know, like cure cancer. I don't even have any sort of like that's not even part of like I don't do anything like that. And I'll be like, oh, like I could totally. What if I went to medical school? I could totally find a cure. Like
yeah, you can go to medical school, go for 8 years.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. You think that way, but now I'm sort of like, wait, like. Do you want to do that? Like I sort of like ask myself the next question, like, is that actually important to you? And of course, like curing cancer is important to me, but it's like, is it something that I'm actually going to spend my time on, like spend my life on? And then I sort of like accept, oh no, I don't want to do that. And then that's sort of like where I go next with that thought. Now that I think I'm like older and more mature than my younger self that would just, throw themselves into whatever shit pile they felt like at any given moment. So yeah, I think the next question I ask myself is, do you want to do that? Do you want that? And then if the answer is no, then it doesn't matter if I can do it or not. I'm like, I don't care about that.
So that discernment sort of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about feelings and being in touch with your heart. And I want to get more at like how you actually make those determinations, because I know that a lot of threes can sort of get on a train that they didn't order or whatever, and like go through a whole bunch of series of steps and go to medical school and be like, I don't give a shit about cancer or whatever it might be. But also like, and related to that is that there's a stereotype often, and I'm going to get to the stereotypes of threes later because there's a lot of them. But there's a stereotype that threes don't have feelings or don't feel stuff. And like just talking with y'all, it's clear that y'all are all emotive people and, heartfelt, and that, like me and my friends and sister who are threes, like, it's clear that they have a lot of feelings, but what's the difference between really feeling that stuff, the feelings that, we were speaking to at the beginning of the call that you might want to run away from versus, being a robot, which is not how threes actually are.
Like, yeah, the stereotype is that threes don't feel very much. And so how he's trying to ask, like, how do you guys manage your emotions, even though you are trying to
cold people?
You're not cold people, but how are you guys managing your emotions?
Is that the stereotype? I did not know that.
Like either robotic or like totally fake. And I want to say about the fake real quick because I think it's like one of the dumbest fucking stupid stereotypes in the Enneagram is that threes are the fake type, and it's like every fucking type is fake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Every fucking type is fake. And a lot of people will go, oh, I'm such a 4, I'm so authentic. And they're usually not a 4 in the first place. But the way people understand like authenticity in 4 is that it's like, I always tell the truth, which is like ding, 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 not a 4. Yeah. But authenticity that is emphasized in 4 is like that it like is my self-presentation authentic to my inner self. It's not about
still
like
an image type.
It's an image type, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
But the virtue of the 3 actually is authenticity, when they're able to really land in their own heart and just like be fully themselves in a way that other types struggle with much more than 3s actually.
Yeah, and it was important to hear you guys say that to you in the moment when you feel that you are adapting to something, that this is what I want to do, I believe I can do it, that you wholeheartedly believe it. So it is authentic to your experience in that moment. It's not like I think people imagine that a 3 is strategizing how, this is how I'm going to, maybe there is some of that there, but it's not like, every 3 is out here trying to like sort of get one over on people. It's, I think 3s actually believe in the moment that they can do whatever it is that's set in front of them and it's real to them in that moment, which can change, which might, to other people might feel, well, I don't know if that was, if you were actually being real, but it's in the moment, it feels real. And that's the important thing.
Yeah. It's always a portion of us. It's just not always all of us.
Yes, that again is like connecting to 9, that self-fragmentation is sloth. So what do you do, or how do you get to a place where you can be all of yourself and not just a part?
Well, me personally, I've found that I have to sort of separate myself from the places and experiences and people that I've crafted those fragments of myself around. And then I can bring them all back together and figure out what's actually me. But I can't be around people who have expectations of me because I will become it without even like my consent. It feels very like I am not consenting in this situation. You're just wanting something from me and I'm just becoming it. You never asked if that was okay.
Yeah, I really resonate with that too. Because it does kind of feel like it's something that happens to you, to me. And just as an anecdotal example, I moved across the country this year and am completely disconnected from all of the people that I've been around for my whole life basically, and it feels like the first time where I can really see myself clearly. Yeah, because there isn't all of this outside noise that kind of muddles my own self-perception or my values or what matters to me. It's just me. So I think solitude and disconnecting from all of the outside voices is what it is for me, how I kind of get to the core of who I am or what really matters to me.
I think there's really something to what you're saying about, especially for threes, needing to like live somewhere else, like to separate as an attachment type, separate from the milieu that they grew up in or city or whatever, and like just be in a totally different place to find yourself apart from all those connections and all those entanglement. Is that true to your experience?
Yes, I think so. I think for me, I've always sort of felt this like burning desire to like be who I was meant to be and like speak my truth.
Yeah.
and I think it makes me like, I feel what the others are saying. Like it makes me anxious. Like, for example, like I like my mom's very supportive of me, but she didn't really like love the pole dancing. And like she loves me. She's a 9 and she's great. She kind of like adapts, and like I'm such a strong personality that she kind of just like goes along with it. But it made me anxious to not like be what she wanted me to be. But I knew at my core that like I couldn't be that. I couldn't be like, I don't know, whatever it was, that probably just any job that isn't the job that I'm doing, which is like, wearing slutty clothes and like teaching people how to be sexy. So I feel like I've always had to just like sort of be myself and like live my truth. And it was like insane to stuff that down. And that was one thing that I just could never really put aside, even as a 3, was like, this is who I am. And like, I'm not necessarily going to like rub your face in it, but I'm going to be who I am. And if you have a problem with it, then like you can leave. That's sort of always how I've been. And I think that's my tri-type, but I do think that to me has always felt like, I don't know if the other 3s feel this like deep down, like, you just like, you have to sort of, no matter what you become or no matter what you sort of chameleon yourself to in different groups, like you still just have to, like, who you are resonates, like it's powerful.
What I like about what you're saying is this sense of knowing that you're becoming who you're meant to be. Like I feel like that is really at the heart of 3. Like there's a sense of I'm meant to be something or somebody.
Yes.
But
yes.
I think that the confusion happens where I'm drawing from other people's voices about what that somebody is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. I've always had a sense that like there's something important that I have to do. And like I've come to the realization that like that might not be completely true, or that important might mean something different than what I thought. But I've also had to completely separate myself from like society for like 3 months. Like 2 years ago I went on my road trip where I lived out of my car for 3 months because I just had to get away, because I just didn't know what was going on or who I was or what I wanted to be, because you just have to sometimes.
Yeah, I've known a lot of like middle-aged 3s or like older 3s who had to have some kind of midlife crisis, to like get at that sense of me that's not just internalizing all the voices or the values of other people or my culture or my parents. Like having to have a crisis that I've been spending my life pursuing some kind of goal where I'm getting a lot of positive feedback and validation, and that I'm still not happy. And so something has to like break in the circumstances in my outer life to find out what really my heart wants me to be. And what I find with threes is that their essential quality is value. It's this sense of like, when we're present, that the moment has value, and it's like I intuitively sense that in myself and the value of other people. But all this doing and performing and adapting, in some sense, it's kind of like devaluing the times when I'm not striving towards the goal, right? So like, even though I'm looking for a kind of unconditional kind of value, I'm actually devaluing myself and my experience when I'm not on the treadmill. Is that accurate?
Yes. Every minute I don't spend going towards whatever elusive goal I think I'm supposed to be getting is wasted. I'm very aware of my own mortality. We'll put it that way.
Do you find are you or the other threes, like, do you find that you're able to like savor or appreciate things easily?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, do you have space for that?
Yeah, I was actually while you were the question before, I was just thinking that I think the threes we kind of like attribute power to things that don't really have power. It's like you're like, I don't know, I keep talking about projection. You're like projecting your heart onto other things, or like we give value to things that, like even rest, sometimes like scheduling rest time, or like, because I train like 6 days a week. So scheduling that rest time is actually like, it becomes something to do almost, if that makes sense. Like you kind of, and then like you realize, like, especially as a three, like, well, everyone can do this, but I think threes more so understand it maybe a bit better. Is like, you can give power to things. All you have to do is just like believe it. That sounds so lame.
No, but I so get it. I'm so with you on that. All you have to do is believe.
Yeah, and like that, I hate to say this too, but like I feel like as a three, there's this like, I have a soft spot in my heart for cliches.
Oh, absolutely. I live in cliches.
Cliche love stories and
yes,
all that
100%.
like, fucking eat it up. Like, I don't know what it is, and I know
I'm
it's
so fucking
lame.
ashamed of it too.
Yeah,
like, oh god,
it's lame AF, but it's you just
that's the thing I love the most about threes is like, no matter what's going on, even like when things are hard, if you want motivation, you got threes just like cheering you on, like you can do it. Pandemic, be like, doesn't matter, we can be better because of the pandemic. You can make more money because of the pandemic. I'm like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah,
that gets at something that's kind of a theme that's in here, is that threes are kind of like the flagship of hope, right? And that takes on, and that can, that has the quality, that metaphor or whatever has the quality of, you're doing it sort of for everybody, you know what I mean? And then there's how much of you is doing it for everybody and how much is true to yourself, right? But there's this sense of obligation around being the hope machine, right? That's going to strive up for everybody, kind of, and be almost a model for what we can do, or something.
Yeah. Inspiration for potential. Like,
that's really
nobody
important.
Else is going to do it.
It's really important to highlight that, because a lot of what people see as narcissism in threes starts out as actually a selfless thing of like wanting to bring hope and inspiration to other people and be like, I can actualize my potential, so can you.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been sitting here kind of reflecting, because I feel like there's strings of this that you two agree on that really don't resonate with me. And so I'm just kind of curious what that might be, what part of type might cause that. Because I definitely don't feel like I resonate with the sense of like, I can just do anything, or this ability to feel like, like this flagship of hope or something. I feel like I'm very aware of my limitations, and if anything, kind of doubt my ability to do things. So I don't know if that's like the 6-9 or what.
It's also the other 2 threes are both self-pres threes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Class, that's part of it. So there's some, sort of basic functionality stuff, maybe.
Do you feel like you could be friends with anybody, or charm anybody, or any of that kind of stuff?
No. Yeah. I think this as being social first, at least this is my kind of understanding of it. I feel like that the most important thing to me but it's also the area where I feel most insecure.
Well,
so I don't feel the sense of I can just go into any group and kind of chameleon.
What I've heard is that if you have social in your stacking or social first, it doesn't necessarily mean you're good at it. It just means you spend the most time thinking about it.
For sure. And I think that's very true.
So the 6 and the 9 show up a lot in me in self-doubt as well. It's just not always, I don't know how to explain it. I both doubt myself and believe in myself at the exact same time. So I get that. I do have a lot of self-doubt, but I also have a lot of belief in myself. It's weird. It's very weird. It's a weird 3-6-9 triangle thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I only say that as kind of like, I do think that is probably true for so many threes, this kind of belief in oneself to do anything and achieve everything. But I don't think that's true for everybody.
Katie, what do you believe in?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, as a 3, setting goals or whatever the like 3ness is in relation to that sense of adapting. You were speaking earlier about being able to know how people are either seeing you or what's going on inside other people. Like, what are you trying to achieve or accomplish, or what's the result that you're looking for?
Yeah, I think for me it comes out in being able to support people. I think that I kind of have that sense of reflexively being able to know what people want or need from me. But I feel like I can only tap into that effectively when I'm showing up in support of other people as opposed to focusing on, getting them to like me or something like that. So I think, and that could partially be my job, but I think that's how it shows up for me.
How do you do that? What does it look like?
So one thing that it makes me think of is, so I work as a therapist. And so it's almost like when different people show up, I reflexively adjust myself to what I feel like they need or what they're going to resonate with the most. So, and they all feel like truly parts of who I am. I don't feel like I'm just showing up and being an actress. They all feel like different parts of who I am, just kind of different sides of me. If it's like, just to throw out some stereotypes, like if it's a, white middle class stay-at-home mom, I might show up more friendly and ask about their family and stuff like that. Whereas if it's, I don't know, some young military guy or something, I might be much more straightforward to the facts. So I feel like that's where the adjustment and reflexivity shows up for me. But interestingly, I don't feel like I'm that good at that in social situations where I'm not like kind of on in my work.
So it seems like this, I mean, you're invested in this role that you have as a therapist and someone who people come to for some kind of psychological support. And you feel like you have the ability to adapt and meet people's needs, relating needs.
In that context.
Context, yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like you have any sort of self-belief that you can do that pretty effectively, or do you feel like I have the ability to do this pretty effectively?
I feel like I have the ability to do it pretty effectively, but it feels more context specific, I guess.
Okay.
And I don't know why that is, but yeah.
That makes sense to me. Like, it seems like at least you found a social context where you can apply sort of a competency goals sense to relating to people in a very specific way.
I mean, context is a huge social keyword.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything feels like it. Yeah, depends on the context. It feels like there's no hard and fast rules for me socially. Like, context determines so much of everything in terms of how confident I feel showing up in that space, or how competent, or even my ability to feel like I can show up as me feels really context specific.
So, like, what about this context? Do you feel comfortable? I'm just trying to get a sense of the texture of how your brain works.
Ooh, yeah, get into my brain. I don't think I feel super comfortable in this context, having never met anybody here or anything like that. So I definitely don't feel the same level of confidence I would feel like at work, for example. This feels more like a social setting.
Mm-hmm. And tell me your wing.
I've been typed with a 4 wing.
Okay, yeah, my sister has a 2 wing, and like she is like guns blazing into social situations where she's making everybody laugh and it's the loudest voice and she's got a neat fix and all this kind of stuff going on. So it's interesting to hear your perspective with the 4-wing and the 9 and the 6 and how all that comes together, because I think a lot of people just hearing this for the first time might not immediately peg you as a 3.
Right.
I didn't peg me as a 3.
How did you see yourself?
A 6. I'm like the one person to mistype as a 6.
Congratulations.
4-wing adds also a certain specificity piece too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just find it interesting getting you guys' your own personal takes on how your 3 manifests, because it's not the same, and I'm just trying to pinpoint like what, like for example, Katie, you don't necessarily relate to the idea of the self-belief that I can do anything, but for you, it's very specific to a social context. That in this context, I feel confident that I can be competent to relate to people in a way that they need. So I'm still trying to like get at what is the core 3 thing, because you guys are describing things in slightly different ways, but there's a kernel there.
Yeah.
An essential quality.
I just curious to my other 3s. Are you guys sitting here comparing yourself to each other?
Oh, absolutely.
No. But who said no? Who said no?
I did.
I'm sorry. We all have very similar voices. Who is this?
Oh, it's Elisa.
Okay.
Well, the social blind is not comparing.
Social blind, yeah. I don't really do that.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
I sometimes do with
That's cool.
Yeah, it is.
I sometimes do with like or I used to with like talent, like other people that would like I would watch them dance and then maybe I would sort of, but I don't even do that anymore because I just, I'm at a point where like I just want to appreciate art for what it is. So if I'm watching someone perform, like I don't compare. I'm like, I want to enjoy this. Like otherwise, what's the point of watching? Like not everything is a competition. I actually hate competition, but I think that's also a social blind thing.
Oh man, I wish I could do that.
But the impulse is still there, right? Like it's something that's kind of developed that you had to.
What impulse?
The impulse to compare, or on some level, it's there, but it's not like it's something that you've kind of realized that isn't useful to you.
It's there, but not in social situations.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't.
I feel like you don't do it in real time. Like you don't
Maybe,
naturally. It doesn't happen that rapid way where it's like an instantaneous kind of like, who am I, who are they, and it's like coloring every single thing that you say. It's like you'll do it, like you said, in specific contexts where you're like, I'm looking at somebody, like I'm watching a performance. It's kind of like it's slower, like you said earlier. It doesn't happen in real time. I think the way it does, even for me, that I would constantly compare myself.
Yeah, that's true. That's pretty accurate. So was it Emeka that was asking the question about the kernel of 3 or what is 3? I'm not sure what that means.
Oh,
what you're saying.
What I'm trying to say is that there's a way that you guys are describing different experiences of 3, and one person says one thing that the others might not relate to, and you being social last, and Katie being social first, and Nancy being self-pres social. There's different ways of you guys are approaching your 3-ness, and so I'm still trying to find like what is the thing that all 3 of you would say, yep, that's
what's the 3-ness of 3,
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to find because we're everything and nothing all at once.
Katie, did you relate to Luisa's talking about becoming who you're meant to be?
100%. Yeah. That would have been my suggestion, is maybe the thing that connects 3s is some sort of journey towards becoming one's, truest self or best self. I think for me, it's like truest self or most authentic self, that it might be some piece around identity and trying to find that.
Like a greater purpose.
Yeah. Or like as a type that kind of, well, at least for me, reflexively forms identity around others. That maybe the kind of goal of 3 is finding that true identity. I mean, without the input of others.
Even as a 4 with a 5-wing, like I resonate with that sort of. I mean, that sounds like the thesis of the feeling center type. Becoming who you're meant to be, but totally different journeys, totally different ways that is conceptualized in different capacities. Like I've spoken at length about as a 4, it's this discrepancy, between the outer and the inner world, and that I'm always in this process of trying to make my outer world match my inner world, but it's to my frustration and hatred and disgust. But this 3 journey, in the sense that even journey itself is like that. There's like a task or like a mission or like a movie plot or something where becoming what I, and it's very like it's also getting me like Christ images, this like sense of dying to a false personality and trying to be reborn to something that's like the real me, the real thing that's to be fulfilled. And like like I'm not not fucking Christian or anything, but like Christ I think, didn't he say like it is accomplished when he died?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom, 3.
Huh.
Yeah, that really resonates.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I mean, it is kind of like I feel like there's an end goal. Like there is a greater me that needs to be born.
Yes.
Wow.
Which sounds so dramatic and
no, it's
dumb.
real.
I hate it.
Yeah, I like that. That really it hits at something if I feel like all of you could relate to there.
The dawn of a new day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds really inspirational. Just saying that, it's just like, damn, I'm gonna get up and do some push-ups. I want to be better.
but one of the things that this is hitting for me is like and I think 3s really express this. But like so I did the Gurdjieff movements, which are these like Gurdjieff is the guy who brought the Enneagram to the world. Before it was a personality system, it was blah blah blah, and taught this whole system of awakening. And one of the techniques he used were these sacred dances that had dervish, Sufi, and all the kind of other origins, and some he made up. But they require really incredible concentration to perform because your head's doing something totally out of sync with what your body's doing, and you're moving into music, and you're coordinated with a bunch of people. And so the cumulative effect is that it's like a meditation, except instead of like breathing and focusing really intensely, it's like you're active. And if you lose concentration for a second, you fuck up the movement. And so anyway, what the effect is though, when you're really like when you've got a real movement group and a real group that's been practicing, not just knows the movement and the gestures very well, but even when they fuck the gestures up, but the group has really cultivated, you get this really clear sense that you're a conduit for something. There's this sense that something is expressing itself through you that you're actually like aligning yourself to, and that anything that you could call your like higher self or real self is like an expression or articulation of this like powerful presence. And I mean, it is so incredible, but that's what I'm getting from that's what I always get from my 3s when they're like talking about that real essential striving. It's like the real identity. It's not even me anymore. It's not about like a better John or a better Nancy. It's like being able to be available for as an instrument of something higher. Does that make sense, or is that an intuitive, introverted intuition kind of nonsense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. You brought up something earlier that kind of goes with that, is that 3s can kind of glean meaning and like I don't know what you said. You said we can kind of experience something like really beautifully in it. I don't know what you said, but you said something along the lines of that where
it was probably brilliant, whatever I said.
It probably was. And someone listening to this can just rewind and rehear what he said. But anyway, like sometimes I have moments of feeling that what you just described, and it's always like, for me, it's in nature just because that's where it shows up for me. But I call it a nature-gasm because I'll be like walking through the world and I'm like, wow, I feel it. And it's just like a moment of like feeling that feeling of you are a conduit for something greater. You are just here as a vessel, and it's awesome. And it's like, that's what I should be going for.
And you just come hard.
Yep, pretty much.
Every cell in your body orgasming at the same time.
Yeah, it's really awkward when the trail is really packed. I'm just leaning up against the tree, like coming.
No, but that's really beautiful. Like I think that that there is this sense that, and this is universal, and also I think like mystical experiences that you get to a certain place, and it's not you is not you anymore, and it's offered up to something. And like that sense of 3s wanting to be an exemplar or an inspiration, it's like it's like I think the highest part of 3 in all of us is the part that offers ourselves up to some kind of higher expression of something, even if it's for just a moment.
I got a question for Katie, because you've provided an example of your 3ness that's very context specific, but I want to know how do you want to be recognized? How do you know that you're doing a good job in terms of how you're relating to people and providing this sort of psychological support in the role of a therapist? What is a marker of how well you think you're doing?
I think it's just feedback. I think when I get the feedback that people feel like they are really heard and understood, or that I've helped them to see something in a new way or see themselves in a new way. And there can be the sense of kind of gelling or flowing. That's how I know.
So it's from the connection, it's from the built relationship, I guess, or the dynamic that you have with that person, that person's telling you like, hey, you're really doing something for me. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's enough?
And it's a feeling. Yeah, that's enough.
Okay.
Just to have that feeling within that one-on-one relationship.
That feels like social, sexual kind of connection, chemistry, blend of, which this is a follow-up question, but I wanted to eventually get all y'all to talk about how your 3ness shows up in your sexual drive. But that's sort of answering my question, that you're building a chemistry with this person, and from the chemistry and the dynamic itself, the feedback, if you feeling that you've done a good job in relating to this person is enough of the you feeling like you've accomplished something, that's enough for you.
Yeah, that feels like everything. And that's something that actually makes me think back on something, not to get off topic, but to think back on what you were asking me before about what contexts feel comfortable, if this feels comfortable. I think for me, it's really that one-on-one.
Okay.
Where I feel like I can show up as me. And that's like my best self.
Before getting to Emeka's sex question, Katie, how did you know that you were a 3 rather than a 6? Like, we didn't really touch on that.
I just got typed in the Enneagram Universe Facebook group.
These fucking chumps just told you what you were.
She put up multiple videos because she wasn't sure about the first time.
But does it feel right?
No. I posted, I was obnoxious. I posted 3 different videos that were like 15 minutes each, talking about all the reasons why I wasn't a 3.
Well.
Yeah.
Feel about it now. Where are you at this point on that, Katie?
Acutely, horrifically aware that I'm a 3. So.
Yeah, so we're not really recording this. This was just a plot to get you to
So tell us about that horror of it starting to dawn on you. What does that look like?
Well, I think that for me, there was this sense that I wasn't good enough to be a 3, or like a 3 enough 3, because I'm not a part.
Which is very 3.
Yeah, very 3.
So exactly, realizing that my argument against being a 3 is the essence of being a 3. It's like, oh God. Yeah, so I think that was part of it. And I think just like part of realizing that I was a 3 was realizing that I do have this struggle that we've been talking about, which is of taking other people's opinions or feedback and kind of integrating that into myself. And that doesn't feel good. You know, I don't want to have to integrate into my self-image that I take stuff from everybody else and take that to be me. So that's where a lot of the horror came from for me, was, my self-perception isn't just all coming from within. It's actually from what everybody else thinks of me. That doesn't feel good. I don't want that.
The horror is a good sign, because when we really land on any of our type, or at least really get what our type is, like we can know it for a while, but when we get it, it's horrifying.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of idealization of certain types and denigration of other types, but it's like everybody has this horror in them. And if you're not sufficiently horrified, you don't know the Enneagram well enough, Yep. And and it's that horror that makes you want to be something other than the machine that is your type. That your type is a program, and there's a you that's based on the patterns of the program, and then there's a you that you can cultivate that's something set apart from it. But you won't, and I mean you in a generic sense, somebody won't do the work necessary to be awake unless they're sufficiently horrified.
I've gotten into like screaming matches with people because I feel like they are forcing their opinion onto me, and they're like, I literally just asked a question. I'm like, why would you offer that as an opinion? And he's like, I'm asking a question.
I've always felt in my experience that threes were like I think John has alluded to this already, that threes are like an assertive 9 in a way.
Yeah.
Like it's like an assertive type doing 9.
Yes. I feel that.
A 3 is like a very assertive, out there type, action oriented type, but it's also absorbing what other people. It's absorbing the thoughts and values of other people at the same time. So in the way 9s are doing that passively, and they're trying to harmonize. But with 3, it's like I want to reflect some higher ideal for the situation. I mean, unconsciously that's going on. And so externally oriented, but it's still very assertive.
Are we going to talk about sex, or are we going to?
Well, I just wanted to get y'all's take on, how your 3 shows up with your sexual instinct. I mean, all of y'all can answer this. How do you get your sense of value from sexual instinct?
I think it's like, this maybe sounds lame, but I think it's about like living my truth, like being who I want to be and who I feel like I was meant to be. And this is sort of where I feel the most comfortable. And I'm trying to like speak carefully so it doesn't just sound like my calling is like throwing my tits to the wind and like being
what's wrong with that?
So what is that your calling?
What's wrong with
Throw
that?
your tits to the wind, girl. Emeka wants to see.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Honestly, it's pretty much, it's almost like exposing yourself, not necessarily like nudity, but like exposing yourself in like emotionally, which can include your body. And like there's a level of intimacy there that like, or vulnerability, that to me it just feels true. Like it feels like that's how people should be. So I think that like when I'm performing, and whether or not it's sexy or whatever, it feels like this is like when I'm there, when I'm doing it, you just get lost in it. You just do it and you don't really think about anything else, and the anxieties go away and everything. And I think that it's like this like vulnerability. It just feels like that's the way, like this is what humanity is. This is who we are. And a lot of people just try and cover it up, or a lot of people expose themselves, but in like smaller groups, like with their partner and no one else or whatever. But for me, I feel like it's something that's public, I guess you could say, and that to me feels right. I
performative.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a better way to describe it, but it feels like that's how I'm supposed to be. And I feel most comfortable there. Like like being naked in front of people doesn't like bother me, or like, being vulnerable in front of people emotionally, for a PG audience doesn't bother me either. So yeah.
It's the way everybody should be.
Yeah. It's like loving yourself and your body. And I think, kind of, there's like a strong femme power there. I think too, like a strong like girl power, and like owning your own energy and like sharing it with others. It's not very much, because I feel like sometimes with social or self-pressed sexual, I feel like people are, and I feel like I've done this for sure too, but people are often like just pushing themselves onto you. But with me, I really like, I want to like share it with you. Like I want you to enjoy it. Like I want, you know what I mean? Like it's not just like look at me, clap for me. It's like can we like share in this together, like with an audience? There's a give and a take.
Definitely.
That's beautiful. I like that.
Yeah, I think in like a few years ago, I did a lot of like sugar daddy, sugar baby stuff, and that I think was extremely healing for me, because I was able to be like kind of worshipped for like my body and my sexuality, and just being just me. And I was kind of able to just be it and enjoy it. And now I'm able to put that into like my art and just my personality in general. I'm able to be much more open about my sexuality and what I enjoy and what I like, because I know that people have like accepted it in the past. So if you don't, then I don't really care as much.
So wait, you had a sugar daddy? Is that what you're saying?
Multiple. Yeah, that was my income for a while.
That's how Nancy and I know each other.
Oh, I wish. Oh, I wish.
Oh, I know Nancy also.
You couldn't afford me, John.
No, I couldn't.
You couldn't afford me. I was expensive.
She's too valuable for us, man.
Yeah, far too
at our
valuable.
league.
Good choice of words.
Yeah, but it's, you know, it's being able to command, like, this is what I deserve for my body and for my sexuality, and you owe this to me. And then being able to command that and really just be in charge, even if you're like a sub, you're in charge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's this ability to just like command the room and command whoever you're with, even if it's a powerful man, and then take this out into the world in your art and in your personality, and being able to be like, no, I know I'm worth this.
What about you, Katie? What about your relationship to your sexual attraction, drive, and your threeness?
I think I definitely just see this the most in that one-to-one social sphere, like I was talking about before. So I don't know that I have a whole lot more to add to that. But definitely this just the sense of I'm most alive and most me when I'm with other people in that one-to-one group and gelling with them and really connecting with them.
What you're saying too is a great highlighting of or clarification around a common misconception in the Enneagram field, which is that sexual type or sexual instinct is one-on-one relating. There is a one-on-one quality to sexual instinct, which is very focused on, tunnel vision. But that one-on-one relating and connecting, I mean, that's social, and the social boundary and social lens is very adaptable. So, and it depends on the individual social type, but it's like, it can be with one person and very intimate and close, or it can be with a whole group or whatever. But it's really important because us social blinds are kind of like reptiles that are trying to not shoot blood out of our eyes too much and not bleed on anybody and try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and it was cool to see to get from each of you your own different takes of your relationship to your sexual instinct, because it's definitely for like social sexual versus self-pressed sexual. It's a completely different. It feels different.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, for sure.
How you're looking at it, because I think there's a lot of people look at sexual threes in the Enneagram world as sort of this mannequin show off kind of personality. And so just to add some depth and dimension to what that looks like. But we are running out of time. I don't want to listen to y'all any longer.
Fortunately, and then have
for
to
us,
re-listen to it.
Emeka is our editor, so we're off the hook.
Thank God for Emeka.
Yeah. I am very familiar with the nuances of each and every one of your voices. I know when you're going to pause. I'm ready for every little nuance. It's like, I've heard you guys so much, it's ridiculous.
Oh, man. Okay, well, this was fun.
Yeah, thanks guys for being on here. Yeah. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for including me.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun experience.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, shout out to Joseph and the bleachers.
Shout out to Joseph.
Hey everybody, it's John, and I'm here to plug something I'll be doing in June. If you've been enjoying the podcast but want a more formal, systematic dive into the particulars of the Enneagram, I'm teaming up with a place that's in Brooklyn that I regularly teach at called Maha to do online classes. So in June, on Mondays, 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, on the 1st, 8th, 15th, and 22nd, I've got a 4-part Enneagram series. Classes will be via Zoom. Classes are $50 per class or $108 for the whole series. And we'll get into more specifics, not just of the basics of the Enneagram, but really how the Enneagram is a tool for inner work. So if you're interested, you can go to maharose.com and find me under online offerings, or you can go to my Instagram page, Orpheus Osiris, and there should be a link in the bio.